Namaskar. Welcome to this session. We are considering the sutra which results into Bhuta Jaya. Bhuta Jaya means Pancha Mahabhuta Jaya. That is Pancha Tattva Jaya, Pruthivyadi Pancha Tattvas, and the conquest of these metaphysical principles. These are grossest metaphysical principles. And therein the sutra told us about the forms of the Mahabhutas. They are metaphysical in nature, yet they have forms. The 5 forms are Grahana, Swarupa, Asmita, Anvaya, Arthavatva. And amongst those we considered Grahana, Swarupa. And then we came to the third one, Anvaya. The Anvaya form means the form of concomitance. Concomitance of what? Concomitance of Sattva, Raja, Tama gunas. Because according to metaphysics, Sattva, Raja, Tama gunas are primordial cause, first cause and source cause of all the aspects in creation. So, the Anvaya form means concomitance form speaks about Sattva, Raja, Tama, 3 gunas. They have concomitance in any manifestation, gross physical manifestation, and it is because it is in the metaphysical realm, the form called Anvaya. So, therein we understand how after the Tanmatra form there is Sattva, Raja, Tama guna form. There is no material thing is devoid of Sattva, Raja, Tama gunas. Absolutely no exception here. So that was the third form. Now the fourth form, as we were saying, is of the Sattva, Raja, Tama gunas. Grahana, Swarupa, Anvaya. Now, the Sattva, Raja, Tama 3 gunas, as Patanjali in the topic of metaphysics postulated, have a purpose. And that purpose is Bhoga Apavargarthata. And this form of Sattva, Raja, Tama gunas is of the form of Bhoga Apavargarthata. Because this property of 3 gunas, as metaphysics has told us already, Prakhya Pravrutti Sthitashīlatvam. And the entire material creation is of the nature of Sattva, Raja, Tama gunas, and therefore the purpose of bhogarthata and apavargarthata. These three gunas are constantly in concomitance in any object in some form or the other. Although we say certain things are very sattvic, certain things are very rajasic, certain things are very tamasic, their concomitance is something which is without exception. You will never find anything only of two gunas or only of one guna. There is always concomitance of three gunas. Nothing is exclusively sattvic, exclusively rajasic, exclusively tamasic. So that is the aspect of gunanvaya. And that is the fourth form of Mahabhutas. That the anvaya of sattva rajatama gunas. No prakritic thing, material thing is without gunas. Again, no exception here whatsoever. And now the fifth form is arthavatva. Arthavatva means prayojakatva, prayojakata, and also called arthavatta, and therefore the fourth form is mentioned to be arthavatva. Now what is the purpose of the prakriti? Again, without any exception whatsoever, bhogarthata and apavargarthata, as stated just now and as also stated earlier in the topic of metaphysics in the sadhana pada, which delineates on prakriti, prakasha kriya sthiti sheelam, bhutendriyatmakam, bhoga apavargartham drishyam. Well, that's a very precise and very concise definition of this prakriti, absolutely excluding nothing from its purview. So, the gunas always have either the purpose of bhogarthata or apavargarthata. Now, since that is the very purpose of gunas, the purpose of all other subsequent forms have the same purpose, that it is bhogarthata and apavargarthata. So, our triguna, or rather from primordial prakriti, trigun, mahat, ahankar, tanmatra, bhuta panchaka, sthula, sukshma, laukika, parlaukika, srushti, creation, entire creation has this purpose. The purpose is to subserve the Purusha Tattva in the form of either bhoga or apavarga. And these are five forms. So yogi performs a samyama or gets a samyama on these five forms. That is Prithvi Bhuta Rupa Panchaka Samyama, Apa Bhuta Rupa Panchaka Samyama, Teja Bhuta Rupa Panchaka Samyama, Vayu Bhuta Rupa Panchaka Samyama, and Akasha Bhuta Rupa Panchaka Samyama. So that's what we have got to understand in this sutra. The samyama is on all the five forms of the prakriti, or rather the bhutas here, Panchamahabhutas. And then what results is bhuta jaya, that is conquest of prakriti. Now it is important to understand the concept of conquest, because otherwise the word conquest gives a particular meaning, which means that the things are under one's control. So, when the things come under your control, you claim that you have conquered. So, by this samyama, this conquest is going to happen. Now, what is this conquest, the form of conquest here? It is not like the meaning that you get from the word conquest. It has a unique dimension of meaning. What is Bhuta Jaya is an obvious question that comes. What is conquest of elements is the obvious question that comes up here. And this has been beautifully explained by Vyasa in his commentary. So let's try to understand what is this kind of conquest. Is it that worldly meaning, literal meaning that we get? Is that the meaning? That's not the case. Vyasa clearly explains it. He gives a wonderful example of a cow and its calf. Now, the cow being the mother and the calf being its offspring, the cow has a form of love for its calf which is called Vatsalya Bhava, because the calf is Vatsa, is its offspring, and the love that the mother has for the offspring is called Vatsalya form of love. So what does the love make the cow do? The cow will be following the calf because of the bondage and love. Wherever the calf goes, the cow goes behind. So similarly, the Prakriti is like Prakriti Mata. She is like mother. And she emulates the nature of the cow for its calf. That is the meaning. So this relationship is to be understood, and the concept of conquest here is to be understood. Say between the mother and the child. Usually we might think that the mother controls the child, but if you look at it from the perspective of love, actually the mother is slave and child is the master. So this Swaswami Sambandha, Swami Sevaka Sambandha, in conquering or conquest, there is a master and subserved entities. So here it should be understood that the five elements don't become conquered in material sense that we understand what is conquest. But it is to be understood this way. Whether the mother is conquered by the baby or the baby is conquered by mother. So this has to be looked at from the dimension of love that is there between the mother and her child. So it is not that the five elements become slaves and rule over entity of the yogi, but the five elements go after the yogi like mother goes after the baby or the cow goes after the calf. And that is the unique nature of conquest that we have to understand here, which is equally important apart from understanding those metaphysical five forms of the bhutas. So it's not that a yogi gets a whiplash and reigns over the prakriti to control it, but the yogi becomes like a baby and the prakriti becomes like mother. So, in as much as the child has conquered the mother, the yogi has conquered the prakriti. And not in the way a master having conquered the servant. That is not the way the conquest is. Now this is to be understood here, and Vyasa casts a light on this concept of mastership, which is so important here to understand. Otherwise you would easily construe that this is like a condition where yogi becomes a master and the prakriti becomes the servant. And as if yogi gains a control, holds the reins and tries to control the prakriti. But it is this way, like calf and cow, mother and baby. Therefore, a yogi who has conquered prakriti or bhutas doesn't become master as a king over something, king of something. And those who are matru bhakta, that means those who are devotees of mother, should try to understand this relationship. It is that kind of relationship whereby the prakriti becomes the cow and yogi becomes the vatsa. Prakriti becomes the cow and the yogi becomes the calf. Prakriti becomes the mother and yogi becomes the baby. And in that sense, the yogi gains control over prakriti and doesn't get the lordship, as the relationship is between the servant and the master. So this is also an important aspect to be understood. So yogi becomes absolutely like an innocent baby, and the prakriti becomes the mother for him. So by such siddhi, yogi doesn't become unmatta. He doesn't become an atrocious person. Because otherwise, having control over prakriti, one can easily become atrocious. But he becomes like an innocent vatsa, innocent baby, innocent calf, with respect to or in relationship to the cow or the mother. So this conquest word needs to be understood here in perspective. And in Paramartha, in spirituality, in Adhyatma, these things must be understood. Otherwise we will construe the things in a wrong way. In worldly jnana, laukika jnana, jnana vardhanam, jnana vruddhi, is actually, according to spirituality, is ajnana vruddhi. And therefore it increases one's self-esteem, one's arrogance, ahamanyata, that I am unique, the feeling that I am unique. And so these are not good developments in spiritual path. Like more a tree bears out fruits, the tree bends. Similarly, it happens to yogi. The more siddhis come his way, he becomes humble. Anyway, by Bhuta Jaya, in simple words, let me make a final statement. It is condition where yogi becomes Pancha Tattva Vatsa. He becomes the baby of 5 elements. And that's how he gains control over 5 elements, like the baby has control over the mother. It is because of that love relationship called Vatsa Prema or Vatsalya. Now, that is what we have to understand by this sutra. Now finally, let's take a reading of Vyasa's comment. And that will end our delineation on this sutra. So it is important to take a reading so that we understand the purport of this sutra in perspective. So here goes the commentary of Vyasa. Sthula Swarupa Sukshma Anvaya Arthavatva Samyamat Bhuta Jaya. By samyama on the 5 forms of bhutas, the elements, the tattvas, the sthula form is Shabda Sparshadi, manifest form of elements. Of course, these are quintuplicated elements. Swarupa is such as all pervasiveness of Akasha, the Vayu, the Vahanam, the movement. So which in metaphysics are called Samanya Rupa. And then Sukshma means Tanmatra Swarupa. Metaphysics tells us about Tanmatra behind Prakriti or Bhutas. Panchamahabhutas have infra-atomic structure. That's called infra-atomic structure of elements. That is Tanmatra Rupa. Anvaya is Satvarajatama Anvaya. And Arthavatva is Bhoga Apavargartha Pradana Shakti. Bhogarthata Apavargarthata of elements. These are intrinsic, inherent aspects of elements. And by samyama on these 5 forms, yogi attains Bhuta Jaya. So what is the sthula rupa of elements? Vyasa tells us, Tatra Parthivadyaha Shabdadayo Visheshaha Saha Akaradibihi Dharme Sthula Shabdena Paribhashitaha. So in Prithiviyadi etc. elements, the Sakaratva and Sabhisheshatva, the particularized form, which is denoted by the form of Vishayas called Shabda Sparsha Rupa Rasa Gandha, is the Sthula Rupam. So, Prithiviyadi Tattvas have Akaradi Dharma, and that is the Sthula Rupam. Etad Bhutanam Prathamam Rupam, and that's the first form of the Bhutas. Dvitiyam Rupam Swasamanyam Murti Bhumihi Sneho Jalam Vanni Ushnata Vayu Pranami Sarvata Gati Akasha Iti Etat Swarupa Shabdena Uchyate. So he defines what is Swarupam, and in precise terms, in forensic language. So the Dvitiya, second form of the Bhutas, is Swasamanya, that is Swarupa Lakshana, which adheres to the substantive form of them, and therefore it is not Tatastha Lakshana as philosophy describes. There are 2 kinds of attributes or characteristics for a thing, such as inherent intrinsic form and extrinsic form. So the Prithvi has Murtatva, Kathinya, Sakaratva. This is how the Prithvi Tattva manifests, by way of solidarity and by way of form, shape. So that is Murtattva. The Jala, Snehatva. And we very well know about the substance in the form of matter, that is called liquid matter. We speak about capillary attraction. So in chemistry they speak about capillary attraction called Kesha Karshanam. So that is the Snehatvam. Then for Agni it is Ushnata, that is hotness, the heat. The Vayu, Vahanam, that is Vayu is understood by the aspect of flow. And Akasha is Sarva Vyapakatvam, all pervasiveness. So these are the Swarupa form, substantive form of the five elements. Then he proceeds, Asya Samanyasya Shabdadayo Visheshaha. By these general characteristics, the Shabda Sparshadi Vishesha, particularized forms, come up. And therefore he quotes previous Sankhya-charya, Yathacha Uktam Ekajati Samanvitanam Eshan Dharmamatra Vyavrutti iti. All the five elements are said to be having one form of them. There's themselves. They have their own form, which is one form. And then we know that these forms are mutually exclusive. That is why the Prithvi excludes Up, Tej, Vayu, Akash. Up excludes Prithvi, Tej, Vayu, Akash. The Tej excludes Prithvi, Up, Vayu, Akash. Vayu excludes Prithvi, Up, Tej and Akash. Akash excludes Prithvi, Up, Tej, Vayu, Akash. So that is Paraspara Vyavrutti. Vailakshanyam, that is speciality of them. And that is why we say they are five elements. Because the one is not alike to the other. And therefore we are able to discriminate between the five elements. So the Samanya Vishesha combination makes them having particular characteristics. This is the metaphysics. The Samanya of it and the Vishesha of it, the two together gives a distinction from other four elements. Any element is distinct from the other four because of this Samanya and Vishesha combination are coming together, Samudaya or Samuchaya. It is to be noted here as an aspect of metaphysics, the Patanjalas say that Samanya plus Vishesha is Dravya. Dravya is basic matter. So the Samanya plus Vishesha together gives us that Dravyam. While in other systems such as Nyaya Shastra, Tarkikas and Nyaya Shastra, Dravya is substrate for Samanya and Vishesha. The Samanya, the generic and particularized forms, have as substrate the Dravyam. So they say it is gunashrayo dharmaha. Samanya Vishesha gunas are dependent on the dravya, while Patanjala say that Samanya plus Vishesha itself is dharma. So that's the distinction between the Naiyayikas and Patanjalas in their metaphysics. This is a point to be noted for those who are students of metaphysics. So the dravya is always combination, it's always a compound. But any combination doesn't make something as substance. There are certain things which have to come together and they become substance or dravya. Any bizarre combination doesn't make it. So that guna samuha in the form of samanya vishesha only become dravyam. Then he says, Dvishto hi samuha pratyastabita bheda avayavanugatam avayavanugataha shariram bruksho yutham vanam iti. The samuha, the collocation coming together, is of two types. The one is identified by Shabdochara merely, and the other one is coming together of parts, like a body. The body means Indriya Avayava coming together in particular assembly, then it becomes body. Or Vruksham, or tree. The tree means a proper assembly of roots, the trunk, the branches, the barks, the leaves and fruits. When they come together in particular form, it becomes a tree. Similarly, there are sometimes conditions such as Pashu Samuha, where different animals come together. There is no inherent relationship. Like in a forest, you will find there are so many beasts. Different beasts are in the forest, but they are not inherently related to each other. But they are coming together, we say it is a wild forest. Or even in a forest, there are different trees which come together, called Vruksha Samuha, Vruksha Samudaya. Different kinds of trees are there in forest, but they don't make a forest just because the different trees are there. But a forest is said to be having that condition. There are different kinds of botanical life forms which are not related to each other necessarily, like our body parts are related to each other. The Indriya Avayava are related to each other. So that is what is discussed in that commentary of Vyasa, which perhaps you all experienced during the last session, that was little terse. So also he describes various samuhas like Deva Manushyaha. Now Deva is one component of the group and Manushya is another component of group. That is mortals and immortals together. That is called Deva Manushya. It is Samudaya. It is coming together of the two, and one of the two parts is Deva and the other part is Manushya. Now they are not inherently related to each other yet. There can be collocation of Deva Manushya. So Deva is first part and Manushya is second part. In the collocation of Deva Manushya. So that's the example that he has mentioned. So also there is Vruksha Samudaya. And therefore there are two kinds of such collocations. Then in case of, say, orchards of mango, that means there are several mango trees, they come together, and that's why it is an orchard. Just having one mango tree, it doesn't become orchards. There must be several mango trees, then only it becomes orchards. So that is Ambranam Vanam. So also example of Brahmananam Sangaha. Many Brahmins getting collected, it becomes a Brahmana Sangha, collocation of Brahmins. Or many mango trees coming together means it becomes Ambravanam or mango orchards. So these relationships are to be understood in metaphysics. That's why he speaks about Ambravanam, Brahmana Sangha, etc. When in these relationships, then it tells us about two kinds of relationships: Yuta Siddha Avayava, Ayuta Siddha Avayava Sambandham. So Yuta Siddha Avayava Sambandham is one kind of relationship. Ayuta Siddha Avayava Sambandham is another kind of relationship. So in Yuta Siddha Sambandha Avayava, they are separable. And they are separate even. But in Ayuta Siddha Sambandha or Ayuta Siddha Avayava Sambandham, they are inseparable. So in metaphysics, you will come across such relationships which are called Yuta Siddha Avayava Sambandham, Ayuta Siddha Avayava Sambandham. So Yuta Siddha Avayava Samuha is like Vanam, forest. So in forest, the various kinds of trees, they come together, but then you can be separating them. But Ayuta Siddha Sambandham is such as Shariram, the body. You cannot separate the Indriyas and Avayavas and yet claim that it is a body. So the body of organs and senses, when they come together to make a body, that is Ayuta Siddha Avayava Sambandham. But several botanical lives, trees coming together, making it a forest, is the Yuta Siddha Avayava Sambandham. So these are also discussed in metaphysics, and therefore Vyasa tells us about it. So that is how he discusses the Swarupam. That's the Dvitiya Rupam amongst the 5 Rupas mentioned. What is the Sukshma Rupam? Sukshma Rupam is Tanmatra Bhuta Karanam Tasya Eko Avayavaha Paramanu Samanya Visheshatma Ayuta Siddha Avayava Vedanugataha Samudaya Ityeva Sarvam Tanmatrani Etat Tritiyam. So, these Tanmatras, when they come together, like if you recall, it was discussed, Akasha has 1 Tanmatra, Shabda, then Vayu has Shabda plus Rupa, and then Shabda plus Rupa plus Shabda plus Sparsha plus Rupa, then Shabda plus Sparsha plus Rupa plus Rasa, and then Shabda plus Sparsha plus Rupa plus Rasa plus Gandha. So we know that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 qualities coming together in 5 elements, such as Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Up and Prithvi. So you should recall this discussion that took place while we were dealing with the sutras of Prakriti, metaphysical entity, in 2nd chapter. So that is the Tritiya Rupam of the nature of Tanmatra. Bhutanam Chaturtha Rupam Khyati Kriya Sthiti Shila Gunaha Karya Svabhavanupatino Anvaya Shabdena Uktaha. So the 4th form is Anvaya. Anvaya of what? Bhutanam Chaturtha Rupam. How Khyati Kriya Sthiti Shila of the nature of Sattva Rajatama. And that is the Anvaya Rupam. Atha Esham Panchama Rupam Arthatvam Bhoga Apavagarthata Guneshu Eva Anvayini. And the fifth form is Panchama Rupam, Arthavatvam and Bhogarthata and Apavargarthata. And that is the fifth form of the Bhutas. Guna Tanmatra Bhuta Bhautikeshu Eveti Sarvam Arthavat. And then right from Gunas, Guna, up to Mahabhutas, all the Prakritik Padarthas have the two purposes, namely Bhogarthata and Apavargarthata. So these are the five forms which Patanjali, Vyasa describes. Teshu idanim bhuteshu panchasu pancharupeshu samyamat tasya rupasya sarupa darshanam dajayascha pradurbhavati. By pancharupas of the five elements, through samyama, by sakshatkara of these rupas, yogi attains jaya. Yogi attains that conquest. Tatra pancha bhuta rupani jitva bhuta jayi bhavati. And therefore he becomes bhuta jayi. Therefore he conquers bhutas. What is the kind of conquest that I explained you earlier? Like go and go vatsa. So Vyasa mentioned that tajjayat vatsu anusarinya iva gavo asya sankalpano vidai anyo bhuta prakritayo bhavanti. So this conquest is of the nature of vasu anusarinya go. That is the cow which goes after its calf. That is the kind of conquest. So with that, we try to understand the purport of the sutra. Now if this conquest is attained, then what happens? That is the Ashtamaha Siddhis. And that is expressed in Patanjali Sutra, which is 3.45. Tato animadi pradurbhavaha. By this conquest, animadi Ashtamaha Siddhis come up. And also, additionally, Kaya Sampat Tadharman Abhigatascha. So there also he gets the Kaya Sampada. And what is this Kaya Sampada? What is this glory of the Kaya or Shariram? That Tadharman Abhigatascha. That there is no harm or no danger coming from or limitations coming from the Panchatattvas. And that is why it is conquest. Otherwise we know that these elemental things put limitations on us. The elemental things also harm us, create problems to us, create limitations in us. So now that won't be happening. And that is the Kaya Sampada. The body otherwise suffers with elemental conditions. It cannot put up with too much heat. It cannot put up with too much dampness. So we have limitations in the body that it cannot withstand freezing temperatures. It cannot withstand boiling temperatures. So these are all putting obstructions on our Kaya. While in case of a yogi, this won't happen. He will enter the fire unscathed. He will be unscathed by a boulder falling on him. Will that happen to us? That huge boulder falls on us. We would be smashed. Or we cannot be coming out of a fire unscathed. So these five elements in their manifest form create lots of limitations on us. And not having these limitations are called Ashtamaha siddhis, and that's a fascinating chapter that is going to follow in the following sutra. So let's turn to that in our next session. So enough for the time being. Namaskar all of you.